This is NDDC Today.
Hello, nice to have you with us. Now, as we always say, everyone has a stake in the Niger Delta because the Niger Delta is the backbone of the nation's economy and people are actually watching them back. So it's not surprising a lot of attention is coming to the NDDC. Now, after a flurry of activities over the past couple of weeks, the Interim Management Committee is beginning to settle down and identifying areas in which it can make quick impact. This week, we take a look at some of those areas, particularly the intervention in the devastating floods that is ravaging parts of the Niger Delta. I am Patrick Oke. Welcome to NDDC Today.
The NDDC repositioning to perform better. The change agents are in place. The task has begun, reassessing priorities.
We're looking at rural development, and for me, it's about rural development.
We must do what is right. Whatever has been done wrong, we must correct it from here.
The president insists that every penny spent on any project in the Niger Delta must be well accounted for.
Identifying no-go areas.
We're not going to pay anybody 1 billion naira every month. I mean, that is wicked. 1 billion every month can put monopumps in rural communities in the Niger Delta, can buy books, can set up the primary health centers. Why would anyone do that?
Setting the standards.
And so I'm calling on all Niger Deltans to stand up to protect our region.
The support is getting broad-based.
But we really want to assure you guys that I think we will support you.
We're going to give you every support that you need.
Take it serious and carry out the proper audit of NDDC.
We want to make people see the NDDC as a social, responsible corporate entity in the interest of the people of Niger Delta.
This is the dream of the people of the Niger Delta.
The NDDC repositioning to perform better.
It's a near disaster situation. Many sections of the Niger Delta are now flooded. People have had to leave their homes, nowhere to sleep. A cursory look at the flood situation in Niger Delta requires an immediate emergency intervention of any federal government agency.
In the Niger Delta, it's always been a case of water everywhere, but none to drink. But since 2012, the situation has taken a dramatic turn. The water is now attacking the rural communities. Everywhere is floods. Water now in the houses, on the roads, on the streets, even in the bedrooms. Many settlements in Western Ahoada have been badly hit.
The drivers drive. They pursue me, the drivers they come.
No cranny or nook has been spared. This year, as often, the Orasha River has burst its banks, and the resultant floods have been unforgiving.
According to people and rumors, they say that this time around is down.
The floods have shown no regard for personalities, chieftains or churches. Everything and everyone has been touched.
We just suffer. No way to play. The children cannot play. We cannot walk because everywhere is filled of water.
It's difficult to imagine that just 4 months ago, this was a thriving farming and fishing community. Now they need not go into the river to fish. The river has brought the fish to their compounds, roads and parlors. Just throw a net in what was once your parlor and you could get this.
Put the net and I just go check the net.
Unfortunately, the water also brings in displaced reptiles looking for an abode.
They killed 3 today. They are swimming every time. Like this young man, that was 4 days ago. Snake went and bite him. You understand? But we thank God, we find a means to solve that problem.
The vehicle of choice for visiting friends is now the canoe. What was once a bedroom is now a submerged swim away. Now, I think the real Olympic swimming medal should go to the guys here. Living in these conditions is really sheer madness. To compound the situation, it seems this has become a yearly occurrence in Ahoada West and other Niger Delta riverine states. So, why don't the people move?
To relocate from their own community. It's not by our power. It's not by our power. At least you can move to another place. The resources to manage other communities, it's not there with us. It is government that manage those things. But we cannot run away, we are just here.
So, they can't move. Although some have moved upstairs, as the water has taken the entire ground floor and grounds.
Auntie, good afternoon. How na dey now? Sorry.
New staircases and walkways have been improvised. Now give it to the Niger Deltans. Their resolute spirit of survival is unassailable in the midst of tragedy.
This place, they manage, they hard for us. No be small suffer where we dey.
But you be modern woman, you get eyelash, yo.
Now, make it fine small so that my husband go see me. Look at fine small. Even though flood dey safe, so we go dey neat.
This is a sand dune, part of a failed attempt at shore protection and reclamation. This sand haven in the town is now doubling as a bedroom for many who have nowhere to sleep.
Very soon, if you look, you will see just a few of them are coming. Anything from 6, 7, you will see here we don't fill up with people because no place to pass night. You always come here.
The consensus of opinion here is that the authorities haven't done enough.
We are part of Nigeria. It looks as if we are not part of this council. This country. No. People are wicked. We have oil west. We have 4 oil west. The government don't even think about us. They have been suffering this thing since 2012.
Nothing. Till now, almost 2 months, this place is flooded. The local governments never come one day. Brand. No food. We struggle before we eat.
That was before the acting managing director of the NDDC, Dr. Joy Nunez, and the interim management of the commission heard about the plight of these people.
A lot of the villages in Bayelsa, Delta, Rivers, Akwa Ibom are this flooded. A lot of the people are now in ID camp, and the commission is going to make provision for them, both medical and relief materials, to go through so that they can have good Christmas and Medicare. As the flood is receding, they will have to make preparation for them to come back.
So the NDDC has come as cavalry to the rescue. It has provided maternal delivery kits and cholera vaccines to ameliorate the pains of the displaced inhabitants of the flood-ravaged communities in this local government area. Speaking at the flag-off of the distribution of the medical kits and cholera vaccination at the Kinema Primary Health Center, the NDDC Managing Director, Dr. Joy Nunez, underlined the importance of ensuring good health care for communities in the Niger Delta region.
We are aware that most communities in Ahoada West have been submerged by floods that have caused so much physical devastation, psychological trauma, and financial loss. And it's this awareness of the pains you are enduring that has inspired NDDC to come to your rescue in a bid to mitigate the health impacts.
The NDDC Chief Executive Officer explained that the Commission had to intervene urgently by providing cholera vaccines for residents of the flooded communities, as well as supplying maternal delivery kits to curb child and maternal deaths.
The potential of huge outbreaks of cholera and spread of epidemic proportions in these flooded locations is real, hence the need for an urgent intervention to prevent or at least minimize such occurrences that can cost lives.
Nunez reaffirmed the determination of the NDDC Interim Management Committee to give priority to the development of rural communities and collaborate with state governments and community development committees. Dr. Nunez, who visited some of the displaced persons camped at the Primary Healthcare Center and Local Government Secretariat in Akinima, expressed displeasure with the lack of basic amenities and the poor feeding arrangements for the flood victims.
They're not eating all day. I think that we just try to do this very quickly and we try to meet up with, especially for children living in these camps, no food to eat. Parents can't go to farms. I mean, it's something that is terrible. And I'm going to try to get in touch with NEMA as well so that we can reach them.
In his address, the chairman of Ahoada West local government area, Honorable Hope Ikiriko, who was represented by the vice chairman of the council, Mrs. Obele Jack Roberts, remarked that apart from the Rivers State government, the NDDC was the only agency that had responded to the cries of the people for assistance.
Besides, the people of the LGA have also mandated me to remind you that the Niger Delta Development Commission could grant provision of relief, reconstruction, and rehabilitation materials as the food crops and means of livelihood of the high populated rural dwellers are destroyed by flood.
He appealed to the NDDC to also assist the council in reconstruction and equipping the dilapidated General Hospital in Joinkrama and the Model Health Center in Okogbe. Ikiriko assured the NDDC that the council will help to supervise the distribution of medical supplies provided for the displaced people by the Commission.
We do it in the name of the Father, Amen. The Son, Amen. And the Holy Spirit. Amen.
The NDDC repositioning to perform better. The change agents are in place. The task has begun, reassessing priorities.
We're looking at rural development, and for me, it's about rural development.
We must do what is right. Whatever has been done wrong, we must correct it from here.
The president insists that every penny spent on any project in the Niger Delta must be well accounted for.
Identifying no-go areas.
We're not going to pay anybody 1 billion naira every month. I mean, that is wicked. 1 billion every month can put monopomps in rural communities in the Niger Delta, can buy books, can set up the primary health centers. Why would anyone do that?
Setting the standards.
And so I'm calling on all Niger Deltans to stand up to protect our region.
The support is getting broad-based.
But we really want to assure you guys that Take Care will support you.
We're going to give you every support that you need.
Take it serious and carry out the proper audit of NDDC.
We want to make people see the NDDC as a social, responsible corporate entity in the interest of the people of Niger Delta.
This is the dream of the people of the Niger Delta.
The NDDC, repositioning to perform better. So the NDDC is hoping to do more, of course, to put more smiles on the faces of these devastated areas. I mean, it's just unbelievable, the condition that people are now living in these flooded areas of the Niger Delta. As one of them said, is the Niger Delta part of Nigeria? When the NDDC is to make sure that kind of feeling does not pervade the area. Now, talking about feelings, the Benin-Warri Road is another major artery that links the Niger Delta to the rest of the country. A lot of traffic happens on this road. But one notices that recently also, the road has fallen into gross disrepair. People are spending hours on that road just between Benin and Warri, and nobody seems to be doing anything about it. Then, of course, like the NDDC always does, it noticed this road, and the executive director of projects has gone visiting to see what the NDDC can do quickly to make the road motorable before Christmas.
The deplorable condition of the road from Benin in Edo State to Warri in Delta State, which has negatively affected road users and the economic fortunes of the various communities that traverse this all-important road, has attracted the attention of the Niger Delta Development Commission NDDC, as the Acting Executive Director Projects of the Interim Management Committee of the NDDC, Dr. Cairo Ojugbo, recently visited some failed sections of the Benin-Warri Dual Carriageway Express Road recently. The acting EDP, who was accompanied by Engineer Emmanuel Audu Ohabora, Director Project Monitoring and Supervision, and Engineer Frederick Ogbede, Acting Director Utilities, Infrastructure Development and Waterways, and some of the Commission's engineers assured that NDDC will intervene and carry out emergent repairs on the road.
Because it's in the Niger Delta region, and my people are coming home for Christmas. The president doesn't want them to spend all the Christmas and New Year period here. Therefore, we will intervene in the interest of the people of the Niger Delta. That is why we are intervening.
Although the maintenance of the Benin-Warri Road is the responsibility of the Federal Ministry of Works, Dr. Ojugbo, however, explained that the Commission will liaise with the Ministry and follow due process to act fast to repair and rehabilitate the road to ease traffic challenges, especially during the coming Christmas holidays.
Well, what we intend to do is to give a competent company, a very big one that can immediately do it, the opportunity 2-3 days to come, do a survey, do a scope, and then they will return to us, and then we'll know the extent of intervention in convention with the state and the office engineers and the engineers of the NDDC.
The Interim Management Committee, IMC, was mandated by President Muhammadu Buhari to help rewrite the narrative of the NDDC. The EDP stated and reiterated that one of the immediate tasks of the IMC is to help put the Commission back on the right path of development for the people of the Niger Delta by completing stalled and abandoned signature projects in the region.
What will happen is that we are going to do our best. The major landmark regional huge projects of the NDDC, we are going to concentrate on it and try and complete them as soon as possible, so that Nigerians will see what NDDC is all about.
Talking about rehabilitating failed roads, here is the story of the Itu-Calabar Highway.
The Niger Delta Development Commission NDDC says it will collaborate with the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing to repair the failed sections of the Itu-Calabar Highway, the only road linking Cross River and Akwa Ibom states. Speaking after inspecting some bad roads at the Itu in Cross River State recently, the NDDC Acting Managing Director, Bene Dr. Joe Nune, said that the poor condition of the road called for urgent attention. Dr. Nune was represented at the inspection by the Acting Executive Director, Finance and Administration, Chief Ibang Basi Etang, and the Acting Executive Director Projects, Dr. Cairo Ojugbo. She assured that the NDDC would make efforts to make the road usable for the Christmas season.
We have decided to interface with the Federal Ministry of Works to see how we can alleviate the sufferings of our people, since this is our catchment area, because Christmas is fast approaching.
Chief Etang deplored the bad state of the road.
A journey that would have taken like an hour to Calabar takes like 10 hours.
He noted that the federal government had awarded a contract for the reconstruction of the Calabar-Udupani-Utu-Ikotekpene Federal Highway.
This is just one of the points, and as we learned, it's not the worst. So when we interface with the Federal Ministry of Works, we'll see how far we can go with it.
Some road users lamented the deplorable state of the Itu-Calabar Highway and appealed for the urgent intervention by the federal government and its agencies.
We're coming last night, so this thing just stopped in this place because of the bad road. It is coupled.
You are coming from where?
I'm coming from Calabar.
Going to where?
Going to Port Harcourt. So things all this stuff. Look at how I am.
Now, if you've been with NDDC Today for some time, you'll notice that we'll be talking a lot about the rather splendiferous Ogbeanembe Highway. One major example of how the NDDC can cooperate with other stakeholders to do some things good in the Niger Delta. It's a project that took years to make. Today, the road is almost ready. This interim management committee says it wants to commission the Ogbeanembe Road. Nembe, the ancient city-state, seen from the air, displays all its breathtaking beauty and splendor like a jewel in the creeks. Nembe, whose rump hugs the salty waters of the Atlantic Ocean, is the terminal point of the Ogbeanembe Road and is probably the greatest beneficiary of the project. Until now, it was completely cut off from the advancing civilization. To get from here to Yenagoa or Port Harcourt, you took a flying boat of 3 hours fraught with many capsizers, or you took this ferry that took 10 hours to get to Port Harcourt. Now that trip upland takes barely 20 minutes. Yet all you see here was built when there were no roads. Even the contents of the old bridge linking Ogbolomabiri and Basambiri, built with bars and concrete, came here entirely by boat, barges or canoes. The new bridge shines under from beyond, a bristling new generation. 27 kilometers across the jungle swamp upland is Ogbea local government, home of Iloibiri, the home of the first Christmas tree, a term used for the end of the flow stations by which crude oil is pumped to tank farms. In 1956, this was a huge novelty to Ogbea community. Many didn't know what it was. Most saw it as another of those structures of European technological presence. They didn't know that through this and others like it, millions of barrels of our new wealth found on their soil would flow to nourish a Nigerian economy which at that time was unsure of its mainstay. It was only fitting, therefore, that the NDDC would honor its origins by honoring Iloibiri with exposure. It would be the starting point of one of the most significant road projects ever undertaken by the NDDC. The strategic Ogbeanembe Road and Bridges project deserves for all intents and purposes the tag of a mega project, which is probably why it has taken decades to become a reality. The people of this area have been agitating for the construction of the road that would link the 14 communities along the axis and open them to development. These communities had never before been connected to a road network, and their only option of transport was by boats and canoes on the creeks and rivers that crisscross the area to connect the rest of the state. despite the pledge of various past administrations to actualize the project, the greatest impediment was the huge cost implication occasioned by the forbidden terrain, which is entirely virgin mangrove swamp forest. Then in 2005, the Niger Delta Development Commission NDDC and Shell Petroleum Development Company SPDC entered into a joint venture partnership agreement, sealed with the signing of an MOU with the sole objective of executing and delivering the Ogbia-Nembe Road and Bridges project. The economic benefits of this all-important road are visible almost everywhere in Nembe. Emakalakala is a community located about 7 kilometers from the starting point of the road in Ogbia and is close to Agip Canal, which has the longest bridge on the Ogbia-Nembe Road.
When there was no road, we find it very difficult because we pass through hordes before we reach in here, like say for example Port Harcourt to Makalakala. I think we spend some number of hours before reaching here, but today, being that there is linkage of road, I think we spend less hours from Port Harcourt to Makalakala or from Yenagua to Makalakala or Ogbia.
As the Ogbia-Nembe Road and Bridges project approaches the completion stage, the NDDC SPDC joint venture partnership that delivered the road has demonstrated not only a great engineering feat by conquering the swamps in the heart of the Niger Delta for this mega road showpiece, but has succeeded where no one else dared before now. It will stand as a lasting testimony to the power of partnerships in regional development and is a harbinger of greater things to come. To some, the Ogbia-Nembe Road might just be that, a road. But in essence, in providing this road, the NDDC and SPDC have woken up a huge giant, until now all bottled up in the creeks. The giant of the great entrepreneurial spirit of the people, waiting to break loose. Now, Nigeria must look out. There is a new kid in the block. So successive managements have come and gone, each with a hope of commissioning the Ogbia-Nembe Road. Let's hope this one holds true. We'll be here to tell you. You join us same time next week. Thank you very much for watching. Bye for now.